Hey guys, so new light cones are coming out to the Forgotten Hall LC shop, and these choices are actually pretty interesting, so I'm going to review them, and I'm going to give you situations and characters where this might actually be an upgrade to the stuff that you already have. Before all that, make sure to like, subscribe, do the old YouTube stuff. But anyway, first, it's Showtime. This is a Nihility LC. When the wearer inflicts a debuff on the enemy, they gain a stack of trick. Every stack of trick increases the wearer's damage dealt by 10% for a max of 3 stacks, so 30% damage percent. This effect lasts 1 turn, so you do have to spam skills to do it, or if you have an ultimate, I guess you could weave through it. And when the wearer's effect hit rate is greater or equal to 80%, increases attack by 36%, so it's an attack stat stick. There are a couple of units actually that doesn't make this sound as bad, because certain Nihility units have a effect hit rate threshold where you have to hit. So Black Swan, if you maximize her A4, actually just goes beyond 80%, so you don't really have to think about it much. The problem with this on Black Swan is that she does have a bit of energy problems. From what the Black Swan mains are saying, she rather prefers tutorial to fix her energy and ult up time instead of this. Sampo, Luca, and Gwynaifen, who have a 66% effect hit rate requirement, only needs around 4 to 3 give or take substats after their effect hit rate requirement. So this is substat efficient for them. Kafka has a very low effect hit rate requirement, which means this isn't really efficient on her because she needs 14 substat rolls to hit that 80% effect hit rate just for a tiny bit of attack. So she would rather use Permada or something. It's not substat efficient. Silver Wolf technically can do this, but you have to consider again tutorial for energy stuff. It's not substat efficient either for crit builds past E2, and pre-E2 she would rather be run as a support, and this extra stat doesn't matter that much to her. Next, an Erudition LC. Good, finally. The Day the Cosmos Fell. Increases the wearer's attack by 24% when the wearer uses an attack and affects no fewer than 2 attacked enemies with a corresponding weakness. The wearer's crit damage increases by 40% for 2 turns. So ideally, you want to hit weakness with this, which isn't that big of a deal. Erudition usually wants to break enemies in mass. This is absolutely just better than Breakfast if you can hit weakness, which is, again, it's not a hard ask. And it's worse than Peaceful Day S5 if you have 120 energy or more. The conditional is pretty easy. You need at least 2 enemies on the field, and if you're bringing Erudition for single target, you're not really... what are you doing? If it is an ad fight where the ads die, the crit damage buff should last long enough where they respawn and you can just keep doing it over and over again. This would probably be Himiko's best in slot free-to-play light cone. Next is a Preservation light cone, Destiny's Threads Forewoven. Increases the wearer's effect thrust by 20% for every 100 defense the wearer has. Increases the damage dealt by 1.2% to a maximum increase of 48%. Very weird light cone. This is basically if a Preservation character was a DPS, which you can't really count right now. The only unit that would actually benefit off this is DPS Fireblazer, I guess. Again, our current preservation options aren't really cut out for DPSing, and if they are cut out for DPSing, it's probably Fu Xuan that you probably invested enough on her signature light cone, which is better than this if you're running DPS Fu Xuan. And if you want DPS Fireblazer, it's actually just worse than Moment of Victory. So I guess if you're a free-to-play, even if you are a free-to-player, just get the Simulated Universe cone. It's a lot easier to do. But if you don't really feel the Simulated Universe light cone because you just don't have the Herta bonds, then this is better than We Are Wildfire, but that's not really a competition. But like, you would still rather use any other LC than We Are Wildfire, so this is not... I believe this is a light cone intended for another character that doesn't exist yet, so I guess I'd hold off on that, but I wouldn't invest on it immediately, seeing as we don't really have the options for it. So yeah. Next up, Destruction light cone, Flames Afar. Very cool art. When the HP lost by the wearer during a single attack exceeds 25% of their max HP, or if the HP they consume is greater than 25% of their max HP, then immediately heals them for 15% of their max HP, while also increasing the damage they deal by 50% for 2 turns. Now that's the big catch, the uptime there, because if you look at every other destruction character, they do not drop that much HP to trigger this effect. Clara has a lot of mitigation to the point where 25% of her max HP being chunked in a single attack is likely not going to happen. Hook doesn't drain HP, you know. Arlen actually drains his HP, but it's only 10%. It's not enough for this light cone. The only other character I can see where this is actually a very consistent and decent option for is Blade. And the fact is, even if Blade can hit this consistently with his ult draining HP, with his skill, it's still locked to a 2 out of 3 uptime, so you will miss 1 turn on it. considering the other options for Blade, I guess it isn't actually that much of a competition, so it's not really a praise to this light cone, because it's absolutely better than Secret Vow at Superimposition 3. If we assume that Secret Vow's second passive just never activates because you have Luocha or something, then yes. So again, like the Preservation Cone, I believe this is where a character that doesn't exist yet, that drains a lot of their HP and doesn't mind the uptime because they're burst focused, maybe someone like that. But for now, it's kind of a Secret Vow side grade, like it's an alternative for Secret Vow if you haven't pulled it yet for Blade. For everybody else, it's just not that good. Hunt Light Cone, Final Victor. Increases the wearer's attack by 20%. When the wearer lands a crit hit on the enemies, they will gain a stack of Good Fortune. This effect can be stacked 4 times. Every stack of Good Fortune the wearer has will increase their crit damage by 12%. Good Fortune will be removed at the end of the wearer's turn. So you could theoretically get 48% crit damage assuming you get 4 crit hits in. The biggest comparison we're going to make here is with Stellar Cruise because it's also a free-to-play light cone, Herta Shop. It's also one of the more competitive Herta Shop light cones, so we're just going to compare with that. For some characters, they would still rather use Cruise because they love killing ads, like for example Zila. But for other characters that actually want to use this, Topaz can be pretty good with this because she just has a lot of hits on Nami and a lot of hits also on her skill, so this is pretty consistent with her. Dan Hang has enough hits where he could do this. Yan Qing has a lot of crit rate, so the fact that it actually gives 48% crit damage might be better for balancing stats than a lot of crit rate on him. The other Hunt characters, like for example Su Shang, doesn't have enough hits to hit this thing, so you know, it's not that good on her. This is kind of the exact opposite of the Forgotten Hall light cone that we already have, but fortunately this one doesn't require it not getting hit, so this is arguably just better in every way. Harmony LC, Dreamville Adventure. After the wearer uses a basic attack, skill, or ultimate, all allies gain Childishness, which increases the damage dealt by the corresponding ability they use by 20%. Childishness only takes effect with the most recent ability used by the wearer and cannot be stacked. Harmony LC is actually very competitive, even if you're a free-to-player. The flaws of this light cone is that it doesn't enable faster ult rotations, and arguably more expensive than meshing cogs. For speed-tuned carry buffers, like for example you have Bronya or Yukong, they prefer past and future because it just gives more damage percent, and it's also on the Forgotten Hall, so it's also free to play. And if you have Rendezvous at least S3, Rendezvous is better if you have the same types. And I still don't know if this is a thing, but I believe this doesn't work with follow-ups. So for example, you do like a skill and then Nami would show up. I don't think Nami gets the damage percent boost. I might be wrong on that, but that's also another point of weakness that could come up. So the only way this LC would be viable on someone compared to the other options is that if their energy and SP use is flexible enough to not change with an energy-based LC, so they have no use for meshing cogs, they just are very flexible, they gain the same amount of energy on their basic and their skill. They don't have a consistent way to speed tune to make past and future a lot better. So, you know, not someone like Bronya, someone with not 100% advanced forward or something like that, not like Yukong. So what unit has energy and SP use that's flexible enough to not want meshing cogs because it's just an outright loss? Or they don't have a consistent way to speed tune to make past and future better. Sparkle. Sparkle is the only unit that can do that. Huohuo might actually make this viable indirectly if you line up your ults well enough, but I still think you'd rather use past and future and just speed tune that way. An edge case that can probably work is Tingyun with Blade, because Blade spams basic attacks and Tingyun also spams basic attacks. But you might suffer downtime when Tingyun uses her skill, though Tingyun does have advanced forward on her skill, so I guess that's not that big of a deal. Lastly, Abundance Light Cone. What is real? Increases the wearer's break effect by 48%. Wearer's basic attack restores an amount equal to 4% of max HP plus 800 for themselves. Wow, what a shitty light cone. If you're a free-to-player, you would absolutely just want multiplication, and you would rather use QQQ. The break effect doesn't really matter. I mean, I guess if you want to build break effect Luocha, that would be kind of fun, but I wouldn't really do it. Honestly, I would still rather put multiplication on Luocha, or even just QQQ, and both of those are free. This is probably the most extreme case of design for a character that just doesn't exist yet. I guess just hold off. I wouldn't prioritize this at all. This would probably be on the bottom of my list. So, in my opinion, what is the priority for these light cones? Which one should you get first? Hands down, the Erudition light cone would be my first priority. It's just a very easy light cone. It's better than Breakfast, and Breakfast is the best free-to-play option already, so it's just a very good light cone. There's not a lot of downsides to it. Hitting weakness is a pretty given task for Erudition because of how they work, and more than 2 enemies is the ideal scenario for Erudition anyway, so it's not a problem. The second I would pick up is the Hunt light cone. If you're a free-to player and you don't have Stellar Cruise yet, it's gonna take you a while to get the Herda bonds to maximize Stellar Cruise. I would pick this as an alternative if you have the stuff for it. The next I would pick is the Nihility light cone. If you have the dot characters, if you play dot like Luca, Gwenaifa, and Sampo, this is probably the best one. It's still worse than the gacha options, but the unfortunate reality of Nihility light cones is that most of the busted ones like Resolution and Good Night Sleep Well are 4 stars, so you have to get them through the gacha. So yeah, this is probably your best bet for these types of units. Next is the Harmony light cone. I still believe that this is a light cone for a character that doesn't exist yet. I don't think this is specifically made for Sparkle. I mean, I hope it isn't, but at least Sparkle is a strong character, so if you're planning to pick up Sparkle and you don't have the 4-star Harmony options and you want to run like some sort of niche team, I guess this works. This is definitely a light cone that takes way too much work to make use of, I'll be honest. Next, Destruction. This is only viable for 1 character, and for the rest it's not that good because of the uptime and the general condition of it. You can pick it up if you're a Blade fan, if you don't have a Secret Vow, I guess. And if you don't plan on picking up Aeon, which I would recommend you pick up Aeon, it's just a very good general icon, then yes, I guess you could pick this up. The next would be the Preservation and the Abundance Lycon. I'm still really not confident on Fire Blazer making use on the other one. I mean, I would absolutely try it just because I'm that type of person, but I believe these 2 light cones are for units that just doesn't exist yet, so I would prioritize them last. So yeah, that's the entire video. See you guys later. Do the algorithm stuff. Bye.